morning and welcome to Love Every Moment, coming to you today from Eustis, Texas. Today's verse is Matthew 7:2. For in the way you judge, you will be judged, and by your standard of measure, it will be measured to you. I do have to say this, that chapter 7 of the Sermon on the Mount is definitely the scariest chapter, and it builds up to some very, very serious and heavy stuff, and this is the first indication of it. A critical spirit has a way of boomeranging and biting us, and so we really need to be careful that we don't judge others, because it's going to come around and we're going to get judged the same way by others and by God himself. And I don't want to be judged based on my deeds. I want to be judged. Well, I want to have grace. I want to have forgiveness and mercy and not be judged upon my deeds. My deeds are awful. Well, let's look at how Paul expounds on this in Romans 2. The first 6 verses say, Therefore you have no excuse, every one of you who passes judgment, for in that which you judge another, you condemn yourself. For you who judge practice the same things. And we know that the judgment of God rightly falls upon those who practice such things. But do you suppose this, O man, when you pass judgment on those who practice such things and do the same yourself, that you will escape the judgment of God? Or do you think lightly of the riches of his kindness and tolerance and patience, not knowing that the kindness of God leads you to repentance? But because of your stubbornness and unrepentant heart, you are storing up wrath for yourself in the day of wrath and revelation of the righteous judgment of God, who will render to each person according to his deeds. Which is logical. If I'm going to judge others based on their deeds, then surely I should be judged based on my deeds. But I don't want that. As I said, my deeds are awful. I want to be judged I don't want to be judged. I want mercy. You know, just the other week I saw someone pulling out with his slide still out. And I thought, boy, what an idiot. And I had this critical spirit. Like, I would never do that. And you know what happened? 2 weeks later, I drove with one of my slides out. I thought I would never do such a stupid thing. And I did. Shame on me. And God have mercy on me for my critical spirit. Now, let's look at a parable that Jesus uses that also emphasizes this point. In Luke 18:10, it says, 2 men went up into the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. Remember, the Pharisees were professional law keepers. They knew their law backwards and forwards. The Pharisee stood and was praying this to himself, God, I thank you that I am not like other people, swindlers, unjust, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I like how he puts the tax collector below adulterers and swindlers and such. I fast twice a week. I pay tithes of all that I get. But the tax collector, standing some distance away, was even unwilling to lift up his eyes to heaven, but was beating his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, the sinner. I tell you, this man, the tax collector, went to his house justified rather than the other, the Pharisee. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but he who humbles himself will be exalted. The basic teaching is judging others is an act of arrogance, and that's definitely not a Christian virtue. Now, if you saw last week's video, and I have the link right up here, I tied in the first verse of judge not lest you be judged to the idea of not worrying, because judging is God's business. It's not our business, but that should be a relief. It's one less thing about worrying. So if we don't judge, we won't be judged by other people nor by God. Isn't that wonderful? Let's love instead, because if we love every moment, we're going to love every moment. I'm your average wretch, and I hope you have a great week.